Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to an indie recommendation video here for UnMetal. Now, here's the thing. I put a post out about this about a week ago. I wish I'd gotten to this video a good bit sooner. Frankly, I've just been really busy. But while it's probably not on sale anymore in terms of like its actual discount or whatever else, I would recommend looking into this one whenever you've got a chance. So, what exactly is UnMetal? So, this is basically Metal Gear told through the lens of a Naked Gun movie, which is a weird place to start. But effectively, it's a really funny take on the whole Metal Gear formula, where more or less what's happening is that you are playing as this guy, telling about his story about an escape from a military facility after he got arrested for a crime he never even committed. Like, they directly just arrest him and say, "You are being arrested for a crime you didn't commit." And he's basically telling this story to an interrogator. He's trying to figure out what he was doing there in the first place, flying a helicopter in restricted airspace, more or less, and then essentially relaying all of this story to his girlfriend, who wanted to hear about it on their road trip. So effectively, we are multiple layers deep worth of this guy just kind of bullshitting his way through this story, and it's just a really fun framing
They
device.
put a lot of effort into the security of that compound.
So, for
The
example, in
guards
this
weren't the
case,
typical
we
ones I've
just got
encountered
into
before.
a hidden base,
They
right?
were.
And we have a choice over whether this secret base was actually being patrolled by Vikings or Terminators. Surprisingly, the Vikings are actually the more difficult option here.
Ex-Terminator guards.
Oh man, I love this framing device though.
The ultimate robot
I
technology.
don't know if this is used
Titanium
in any of their other
endoskeleton
games.
covered with organic
Um,
material to look
like
like humans.
I immediately had to go
Programmed
put
to
the rest of
kill.
their games on the
No
list, but
regrets
like,
or doubts. And
but
I
yeah.
held no regrets or doubts about destroying them since they weren't alive.
So that's actually kind of the other interesting framing device here. See, again, remember, he's telling this story to his girlfriend, so he's trying to kind of make himself out to be the best person that he can be. Which means that whenever he's telling the story, obviously he completed a complete pacifist playthrough, which means that anything that is remotely a human or an animal she considers cute, you can't attack, or rather, you can't kill, or you get a game over. So this actually leads to a fun mechanic where, like, let's say there's guards or something, and you end up whipping out your pistol and you shoot a guy. If you don't go and patch him up with a first aid kit, you get a game over. And they do lean into the fun mechanical side of this thing pretty frequently, including cases where, for example, you have to plan out entire rooms where a bunch of guys are trying to kill you with traps, but the only way that you can get past those traps is to put them on bleed out timers before you can pass through, leading to this fun puzzle of how do you manage to save them from their own mess before exiting the room. And like, it manages to kind of constantly thread the needle in terms of fun encounter design, while not having that moment. And like, that's one of those things that I would say I've regularly seen as a kind of bit of a downside when it came to like the Metal Gear series there, where you occasionally would have those moments where you had, that moment where you, for example, the backtracking struts in MGS2, or the jungle in the original Metal Gear 2, which this one's very, very heavily inspired by. In fact, actually, there's an item that you can get in the early game. I think it's only on hard mode. That allows you to play with the kind of MSX version of the soundtrack here, because originally this was actually made with like MSX graphics and such, as a game called Prison Escape, and then just over time it kind of transformed into this. And we'll see if we can ambush this guy. Probably not, but we'll see. They're Terminators, so obviously we got to use our EMP grenades and such. God, that's satisfying. But yeah, on top of the choices that you get for your regular regular encounters and such, like, you'll have a lot of different choices as far as making your encounters play out differently. And interestingly enough, they will actually interact with each other. Like, they'll call back to previous choices that you've made. Yeah, I think in this particular case, we probably want this. And obviously, a lot of things are named after old movies and such. So, you got your Demolition Man and Last Action Hero there. But yeah, hell, you even basically get arrested by the A-Team at the start of the game. But it's a really, really fun parody. And again, it's basically told through the lens of a Naked Gun movie. Like, it does this thing of partially taking itself seriously, but, like, everything is so freaking oddball, and it's just, it's a really fun time. Like, I know to I've seen a very common sentiment when I was going and researching one particular version of this game, where a lot of the reviews simply said, you know what, it's amazing the jokes just kind of keep on landing, despite the fact that this is pretty freaking goofy, and I would definitely agree with that sentiment. I love a good goofy parody and stuff like that. And again, this just basically feels like a Naked Gun movie. So to my mind, that's exactly what I'm here for. So if that's the kind of thing you're feeling, then this is definitely going to be it for you. And I should also point out that on the mechanical side of things, it is very very solid. There's a lot of mechanics from classic Metal Gear that you see revisited in fun ways here. So for example, if you liked the old thing of the binocular mechanic from Metal Gear 2, or if you liked some of the kind of interesting gunplay puzzles from something like Ghost Babel, then you're gonna like it here. Is this guy gonna be? There we go. Let's do that instead. Yeah, he probably would mess me up pretty good if he had a shot. I should also probably point out that the encounters are actually pretty threatening. Like, there are certainly going to be those moments where clearly it was designed with a fairly rudimentary AI, so sometimes if there's only one entrance to the room, you can just kind of sit there and punch everybody out until the alarm goes away. But man, some of the encounters get really, really difficult. Like especially some of the later bases and such. There's going to be those cases where you walk in, and there's just like 20 guards that suddenly pop out because one guy spotted you. So I would say it's got a pretty medium amount of challenge. The boss fights are a lot of fun. In fact, actually, I was a little bit surprised by how many random Sonic the Hedgehog elements of all things are in here. So, for example, at the very start, you're given the God Mode artifact, and you can use rings to turn yourself temporarily invincible. Or actually, wait a minute. I think this is a hidden area here. There we go. That works. Yeah, there's little hidden stuff if you're wondering why I'm running around punching everything. But yeah. They clearly were definitely fans of a lot of classic things. Like, do you remember that one boss from Sonic 3, where they're going and dropping boxes on you, and you're trying to like break the boss while they're dropping boxes and everything? You basically have that with a version of a giant quadcopter drone. Again, it's just really really fun. So if if this is the kind of experience you were looking for, it's absolutely here. It obviously parodies are not necessarily always going to be for everybody, but man, on the mechanical side, it's very satisfying to play through. On the writing side, it's just a ton of fun. Oh, yeah, I think we're gonna need to use our rocket launcher here. And are they coming? And yeah, I should probably point out also that. Basically every time, if you remember Metal Gear Solid 2 specifically, if you ever had those moments where you were kind of dreading the bleed out mechanic, you have the same bleed out mechanic, but it will happen every single time, which I think happened in the hard mode of that one. I don't remember. It's been a bit of a minute. Actually, I never tried using the chloroform rag on this guy. What happens? Okay, it doesn't let you use use the knockout rag on him. Like it shouldn't, but you never know. Also, a lot of really fun callbacks in this one too. Like, for example, if you equip the pistol while you're standing against a wall, you do the classic poster pose and stuff like that. You can tell that there was a lot of heart here, and it shows all over the dang place. Again, the encounters are really really fun. A lot of them are downright silly, and those are just best experienced firsthand. A lot of the more kind of standard areas are stuff like this, but it feels like every one of the levels has a lot of really unique stuff going on. It feels like there was just a lot of thought put into just making use of some of the mechanics, but not necessarily all of them in every new area that you go through. So like here, it would be the interesting, unique guards and such. In some places, it might be stuff like you're being harassed by a gunboat the entire time. In other places, you're using a flamethrower to fight off rabid squirrels, because of course you are. Or in other places, there's a bunch of patrolling soldiers that happen to have to run a particular routine, and so you have to constantly avoid those weird patrols that they're doing. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going on like that. Like in this particular case, there's even a moment where you actually have to get through like a friggin' medieval medieval labyrinth for reasons. And for anyone that liked that scene from MGS5 of breaking the mirror, you can actually break every sink and mirror that you run into. And additionally, your saves are handled by using the bathroom, because of course they are. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was actually looking into a particular version here that led to a lot of kind of personal discoveries as far as this game went. So, little weird random note here. This was originally on the PS Vita. Which again, kind of an oddball thing. I think it came out on everything and then just kind of happened to release on the Vita. I don't know. The unfortunate thing is it didn't have a digital release. It was one of these games that only had a physical release, and seemingly they just kind of put it out there for the hell of it. So let's just say there are ways. Because unfortunately, the only way to actually get the thing normally, if you want to try the Vita version, which is it's far from the newest version. Honestly, I would say for basically everybody, just play it on Steam or something. Just the Steam or Switch version is the most up to date. The Vita version is more of a curiosity because I personally love the Vita, so I was curious to see what it would play like on it. And it plays exceptionally well, just like it does here. Actually, mechanically, it's almost the same. It's just that, for example, like projectiles look different. The music mostly sounds the same. The controls, I would say, actually kind of feel a little bit better. I'm not really sure why they switched where the buttons go, but whatever. I thought it felt a little bit more natural, but then again, I also love everything about that little handheld. But interestingly, they actually changed some of the choices, not in terms of the outcome. Oh, geez, that was a weird thing. Not in terms of the outcomes of those choices, but specifically, we're just gonna have to eat some damage here, I think. But specifically, they changed the kind of presentation of some of those choices for the better. So, like, for example, there's a choice partway through where you're theorizing over the origins of people piranha hybrids. Don't question it too hard. And so, for example, in this version, they're like, oh, it was some mad scientist experiments that went down there, or it was somebody that somehow had happened to have a child that was a piranha, and they tried to flush him down the toilet, and they came back for revenge. And it's a lot funnier in this version. Actually, I've heard some folks say that the weirdness of some of the stuff that's left in the Vita version was essentially kind of mistranslations from the original Spanish version, because the dev is from Spain, from what I understand. And so there led to some choices that sounded almost uncomfortably edgy, I would say.
Little room, I found a few crates. They contained.
Interesting. In this case, I think we just do we want rockets or first aid kits? Doesn't really matter because this isn't the playthrough I'm sticking with anyway. Yeah, sometimes they give you direct choices. Sometimes they will actually directly troll you. Like partway through, there's a boss that has a bunch of tentacles, right? And it's like, oh, didn't that thing have tentacles? Like, oh yeah, no, they totally had tentacles. And your choices for different numbers come up, and it's like, oh yeah, no, they had 6 tentacles, or they had 4 pairs of tentacles, because you'd think 4 would be the lower number, and so it's like, oh, I want it to be easy, let's go ahead and pick 2. Like, oh yeah, no, he had 2 dozen tentacles, and they're just machine gunning lasers everywhere. Again, it's a solid mix of just kind of oddball tongue-in-cheek humor, really solid gameplay, and yeah, just a lot of heart. This game's definitely got a lot of heart. I kind of think of it. Oh, I already gave away all my coins. I can't lure these guys out with coins, but I suppose what I could do is turn on God mode and then just like punch this guy. I should probably point out this is not really your kind of optimal solution to anything. You only get 3 uses of this item in the entire game, and I'm pretty sure you get no uses of it on hard mode, but I was just kind of curious if that gave an achievement. There's a lot of weird oddball achievements in this game as well. Like, let's see what we got here. So, like, whether you find additional evidence for stuff or beat stuff with a kind of trusty slingshot, or again, heal guards if you injured them and stuff like that. Because again, you gotta be a good dude. Let's see. Get the most experience possible. Apparently, only did some of them for some of these, but things like breaking all the toilet doors, or or killing off enemies with their own traps and stuff like that, or using that particular item I was just talking about to punch a robot tank to death. It's a very bizarre and fun experience. So would I recommend it? Absolutely. When it's on sale, it's like $5. This is the catacomb basement thing, whatever. So yeah, it's a ton of fun. The writing is really enjoyable. Like, you'd think some of the kind of corny jokes wouldn't land after a while, but I personally still found them funny on multiple playthroughs. So yeah, it's not the craziest long game. Like on your first playthrough, I would say.
With Dr. Hoff.
Okay, I'll just summarize here.
We've been here several hours.
Jesse Fox here. Over.
Can you tell me what the hell you're...
The evidence finally collapsed.
Okay, we're gonna try to skip a bunch of stuff. I didn't mean to walk into the spoiler room. Let's just go ahead and patch this guy up real quick. That's what it usually does with the guards if you injure them. Anyways, so yeah, it's just a really solidly made game, is what I'm trying to get across here. So if you liked classic Metal Gear, if you if you're just looking for that same experience, if you liked Metal Gear 2, if you liked Ghost Babel, if you're looking for something that felt like a far improved thing gameplay-wise, but wanted a bit more of a cornball story to it, then this is absolutely going to be what you want. Again, on sale it was like $5. Full price it is $20. Which I would say each of the chapters, roughly speaking, first playthrough were about an hour long, and there's 10 total chapters. And on repeat playthroughs, again, you have options for kind of different difficulties and whatnot. You have options for just kind of different challenges and whatnot. So it's fun. Like, for example, this rapid punching thing, there's a choice early on over whether you'd like to rapid punch or whether you'd like to run faster, or things like regenerating more, or things like being more stealthy or whatnot. And it doesn't seem like much at first glance, but it does lead to some fun changes. And as you'd expect, there's a lot of kind of interesting little mechanics between your items. So, like, those particular glasses, they don't always help with things, but what they do is they actually occasionally give you views of what robots are up to. Or let's say you have weird combinations of items that, like different chemical bottles and whatnot. I'm not actually sure what a lot of those were up to be completely honest. Surprisingly, about half of the items in the game I didn't actually end up making any use of. So I'm sure that there's a lot of hidden stuff that I never found. I would say in total I've probably found maybe 5 out of the like 30, 40 odd secret areas and items and whatever else in the game, so there's a lot more to discover. Again, probably about half the inventory I never actually ended up using for anything, so I'm sure there's a lot of puzzles that those would have been useful for. And yeah. So, if you were looking for Metal Gear, this is going to be something you want to pick up at some point. It's available on Switch. It's available on Steam Deck, obviously, as well as I think on PS4 or sorry, I think PS4, PS5, and Xbox, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I would assume so. Everything's usually on there too. It's the usual kind of everything gets a kind of release. And yeah, it's actually officially available on the PS Vita, though it only came out on physical versions, so it's basically being scalped on eBay for like $300. But as always, there are ways that are a bit more complicated, and I won't exactly share how. But unfortunately, from what I understand, they basically have no possible way to make more cartridges or to put it on the digital storefront or update it. So it's basically a way older version where some of the jokes are a little bit more spicy. Like the whole bit of mad scientist throwing fish into the basement, definitely a lot less cringy than talk of artificial black market inseminations gone wrong, which is yeah, that I will say I can see why they why they changed a lot of those translations, because that was not not great, but it is what it is. I'm just glad that it plays on the Vita at any rate, because it seems like for everything else the game is more or less the same. And interestingly enough, the only reason I knew about the Vita version was because of this version. Because one of the rooms that you enter in is actually a note from the devs, where they're basically addressing the differences between the different versions there. That they did change some wordings, that they changed a lot of the visuals, that they changed the way a lot of things play to generally make everything better, and sure enough, they did. It's just kind of an interesting curiosity. It's interesting to see a kind of callback to stuff that they did themselves. And I should probably also point out, while not the most relevant note in the world, but there are interesting moments where you have easier ways to solve puzzles that they will call you out for not using. So, like for example, there's an area that's completely filled with fire traps, and you have a fireproof suit, and you can very easily trivialize that entire area. And if you just decide to go and kind of RPG, or not RPG, but if you decide to kind of platform your way through it, you'll find that you're getting angry calls, or not angry calls on the radio, but you're getting conversations with the person that's interrogating you. They're like, oh, you had a heat-proof suit that entire time. Why didn't you just use that? It's like, oh, you see, the human mind is an incredible thing. Clearly I was just too overwhelmed at the time to remember what I was doing, and it just sort of my mind refused to acknowledge that item existed. And he's like, yeah, so you're trying to say that you just forgot to use it? I'm like, yeah. Anyway, it's fun. So really fun humor, really fun gameplay. So yeah, it's like $5 on sale. You should pick it up. All right, I gotta go. See y'all later. Bye.